Welcome back to Morning Joe. We have a new call in the Democratic primary race. NBC News projects Bernie Sanders is the winner of the North Dakota caucus with 72% of the vote in. Sanders has 53% to Joe Biden's 40%. This is Sanders' first win in yesterday's elections. He's been awarded 8 of North Dakota's 14 delegates, Joe Biden 6. Biden now leads Sanders by 148 in the total delegate count. Back now to the coronavirus. Officials in Illinois yesterday announced 8 new cases, bringing that state's total reported number to 19. 2 of the new cases are the first to be reported outside of Cook County and involve individuals who are not linked to any other known case, a sign officials say may point to community spread. So far, some patients in Illinois have already recovered from the virus, but the Chicago Tribune reports that a 60-year-old Chicago man remains hospitalized in serious condition. And the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, joins us now. Governor Pritzker, thanks very much for being on. There are some states, New York, for example, which they're starting up a containment zone in one city. What do you project might be needed to address the virus outbreak in your jurisdiction?
Well, so far, we've been able to stay ahead of this. We've been preparing for this for some time. We did tabletop exercises, frankly, middle of last year, where we anticipated some kind of virus, perhaps from Asia, and we made sure that our agencies were prepared. But I must say that, here we are in March, and we're 2 months from the beginning of this crisis. And, we've had to make some adjustments and preparations, that some of which we didn't expect, but most of which we did. And so right now, with 19 cases that have been detected, and as you said, we have one that's in serious condition, a few that have recovered, but we expect a big wave coming forward. We've made preparations by advising our most vulnerable populations, our elderly and those who are immunosuppressed, to stay away from large crowds, to make sure and protect themselves, to make sure that people are checking on them, to make sure that they're okay.
How many tests do you have now for your entire state?
Not enough. And this is something that is extraordinarily frustrating for me. We received a couple of thousand tests very early on because we were insistent that we needed that testing capability. The CDC provided that. We've gotten a few more after that. But the truth is that this has been slow in coming, too slow. And I've been on the phone with the federal government officials for days, for weeks now, making sure that they know we need more testing capability. I'm very frustrated. We have some of the best hospitals and research institutions in the country here in Illinois. We could have had this testing on the ground, as other states could have, if the CDC hadn't put a halt to it all. And you've seen that in other areas of the world, they're testing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. We're limited in our testing. We're doing surveillance of all of our population across the state as best we can, but with only a few thousand tests available to us, it's limited.
Governor, it's Willie Geist. Good to see you this morning. We appreciate your time on this important topic. I want to ask you about large gatherings. We're hearing more and more that it's dangerous to get a large number of people in one place. Both campaigns, the Biden campaign and the Sanders campaign, canceled their events last night. You have a huge event coming up in the city of Chicago. I know this isn't explicitly your call, but the St. Patrick's Day parade, the famous parade there where they dye the river green and everything else, still scheduled to go forward. Do you think they should hold the St. Patrick's Day parade in Chicago this weekend?
Well, I've been in close touch with the mayor of the city of Chicago, as well as the mayors and county board chairmen all over the state of Illinois. And we are, in fact, advising people who are most vulnerable to stay away from large gatherings. We're talking about what to do about St. Patrick's Day. And the mayor and I are going to hold a press conference a little later this morning to consult or to show people, tell people about how we've consulted on this and what decisions have been made.
And what about schools? What's your view on whether or not schools should remain open?
Well, we've had a couple of school closings. In one particular case, we had a teacher's assistant who has contracted coronavirus. And so we closed the school. She is now, being treated but we have a lot of kids at that school that we wanted to protect. So school districts are going to make decisions on their own at this point, although we're advising them about what to look for and how to protect those students, as well as the teachers themselves. As you know, the most vulnerable populations are not our youngest people, but in fact our oldest.
Right.
And then, of course, our immunosuppressed. So we're giving good advice, I think, to our school districts who are making those decisions on their own.
Governor Pritzker, we had Governor Cuomo of New York State on earlier in the program, and he was asked about the federal response in terms of a partnership, in terms of help to states. And while he didn't want to risk getting a volley of tweets aimed at him by the president, he was fairly forthcoming in his disappointment. I'm wondering, the state of Illinois, your job made easier or harder, or has it changed at all because of what the federal government has not done?
Well, I'm not afraid to say that I am extremely disappointed. Again, my job is protecting the health and safety of the people of our state, and I need help from the federal government where they can offer it, and they have the ability to do that. Not only providing more tests and opening up the testing capability for our research institutions, but also, we have a lot of people who've now been asked to stay home for 14 days, people who are living paycheck to paycheck. We would like to provide them with unemployment benefits. But as you know, there is a rule called the able and available rule that says if you're able and available to work, you cannot receive those benefits. And what I would like to say is that that you can receive. I'm sorry, that you can receive those benefits. And what I would like to say is that because you've been ordered to stay home for 14 days should not keep you from being eligible for those unemployment benefits. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, you're available to do telecommuting work when you're home. That's an example. They look like they might be willing to offer waivers, but we haven't seen any of those across any of the states yet. So I need a waiver. I think all of our states do, so that we can take care of our working class and middle class families that are now being suppressed, that are now being, asked to stay home and may have serious difficulties going forward.
Governor, it's Claire McCaskill. I'm curious, what we see in Italy is that their health systems are overwhelmed. Their hospitals are overwhelmed. People are not getting medical treatment for other serious problems because they are so consumed with this virus. Are your hospitals prepared? Do you feel confident that our medical systems are ready to handle this?
Well, thank you, Senator, for that question. Again, we have some of the greatest hospitals in the world here in Illinois, and we have worked with our hospitals to make sure that they're prepared. But the most important thing that we can do at this point is to keep people that don't need to be at the hospital away from those beds, from filling those beds, to make sure that we have as many available as possible, and that as state government, we're providing the right number of self-isolation beds for people who may not be able to go home to self-isolate. There are people that need to be split up from their homes, somebody who needs to self-isolate and somebody who doesn't need to be around somebody who's self-isolated. And so as a state, we want to make sure we're providing the housing needs that people will have. So we've worked hard on that. We've been working on that for a couple of months now with the city of Chicago and with the 102 counties across our state. So are we fully prepared? Well, we don't know, because we don't know exactly where this will crest. At the moment, we're doing just fine, and we're making sure that we're doing everything we can so that our hospitals have the available PPE, the personal protective equipment, as well as the personnel and the beds that they need.
Governor Gene Robinson, you've got a primary election coming up soon. How is the virus going to impact that?
Well, Gene, we have, of course, our election next Tuesday, and it's a big one. We think there's going to be big turnout for that election. We've been concerned about the polling sites that are in nursing homes and in our veterans' homes across the state. And so we've tried to move those away from the nursing homes and veterans' homes so that people from outside who normally vote in those locations will have somewhere to go, but won't be tracking in the potential for coronavirus spread. And then, of course, we have nursing home voting across the state that occurs the day before Election Day. So we think we're doing what's required here to have a successful Democratic election When I say Democratic, I mean little d Democratic. And I will say that our boards of elections are working with us. I want to encourage everybody to continue to vote by mail. Lots of people have the ability to do that, and they are doing it. And we've asked our Board of Elections to extend the ability to turn in your vote by mail ballot until the Monday before the Tuesday election.
All right, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.